up there.
No. My screen went black, but I'm fine. We're fine. Okay.
Okay, so yes, again, thank you, Tony, for this wonderful opportunity to return. Just a little bit about me. As a certified coach, chief encouragement officer, writer, and speaker, I guide people to career and lifestyle clarity that is aligned with who they are and what they want. And I help them to learn how to live in their natural strengths and recognize their self-sabotaging ways. On the personal side of me, in my spare time, I like to indulge in travel, take in landscapes. I'm a hiker, a kayaker. I enjoy cooking, entertaining people in my home, learning and mentoring, all of which really helps to enrich the creativity and the abundance of my ideas of, what I do in my line of work. So I guess you could say that these are some of my good habits. Uh, in a broader sense, what I do at Diane Wallard Coaching is I help you to take pivotal steps to advancing career, business, and life. And I do this by helping you to analyze your current condition, clarify your desires, remove obstacles, and form future pathways. And before I proceed here, I just want to do a quick check-in with Tony. Tony, you have started the recording, correct?
Yes, I'm recording.
Okay, thank you for that. So today we're going to talk about habits. And more specifically, I'm going to talk to you about the impact of habits and how they form. I'm going to sprinkle in a few stories, personal stories of my own habits and habit formation. I will give you a renewed way of looking at habits, and I'm going to give you some proven tips to turn bad habits into good habits. Now, I'd like to, if I may, I'd like to guide your note taking a little bit. What I like to suggest to you is that don't be concerned about taking notes of the content itself. You have my permission to snap pictures of my slides on your phone if you would like to. I also invite you to send me an email after today's event. If you would like to have the entire slide deck, I would be happy to share that with you. Just send me an email. So rather than concentrating on taking many notes of the content that you see on the screen, save your note taking for bits of information, bits of inspiration, the things that really inspire you. And I would like to say, please have a pen or your favorite writing instrument and a tablet or a journal nearby, because I am going to have you do a few little small activities. So let's talk more about habits. And to set the stage, even before we consider these questions that you see in front of you, I want you to ponder quietly to yourself this question. Are the things that you are doing repeatedly creating the outcome that you want? Are the things that you are doing repeatedly creating the outcome that you want? Just sit with that a second. And now I'm interested in learning from you. Which of these statements resonates most with you? Are you here today because you want to learn how to recognize your habits or learn how to break a bad habit? Or perhaps you want to learn how to get a good habit to stick. If you would please put your answer to this question in the chat box. You can just put in the words that I have underlined to make it easier for you. So in the chat, share Are you interested in recognizing your habits, learning to break them, or learning to get good ones to stick? And so thank you for any of those who have or are in the process of sharing that. So what is a habit? Merriam-Webster tells us that a habit is a settled tendency or a usual manner of behavior. Usual, meaning things we do repeatedly. Often our habits become kind of like we're operating in autopilot. We do them without even thinking. Many of our habits lie in our subconscious. Some examples of habits here. You might have the good habit of eating a healthy breakfast every morning. Or maybe you have a good habit of tidying up your desk at the end of each workday. Perhaps you have a bad habit of leaving dirty dishes in the sink. That would be me. Now, I only leave a few though. I don't have mounds and mounds of dirty dishes. But, you know, we all have our habits, good and bad. I have a small activity for you here, and this gives you the opportunity to take a quick inventory, to just sit and reflect and think about some of your habits, so that as I go through the rest of today's presentation, you can be actively thinking about and working on how you might shift some of those habits. So the activity goes like this. These pictures are representing 4 different categories, if you will, or types of things. We have work, we have relationships, we have money, and we have self-care. So when you think about your work, your relationships, your money, your self-care, take a minute to jot down some of your bad and or some of your good habits within those categories. You don't need to touch upon all categories, but those that immediately come to mind, those that you are interested in taking action on, either eliminating them or boosting them to do even more of your good habits. And the reason it's so important that we step back at times to take an inventory of our bad habits is because we can't change what we don't recognize.
Yourself? Diane, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? Diane?
That must have happened to me somehow behind the scenes. Can you now hear me, Tony?
No, yeah, I just stopped hearing. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No worries. So that concerns me. Did everybody get the end of that set of instructions?
Yes, it was only for a moment.
Okay. So now you should have in front of you a couple notes about some of your habits that you would like to bring some attention to. There we go. I was having a technical blip for a minute, advancing my slide. Aristotle has said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. We are what we repeatedly do. So let's talk a bit about the impact of habits, both good habits and bad habits. When you are acting, behaving in the space of your good habits, you might experience things like enjoyment, satisfaction, confidence, achievement, fulfillment, On the other hand, when you're acting in the space of your bad habits, it will bring you things like discontentment, dissatisfaction, low self-esteem, stuckness, frustration. To hone in on this even a little bit more, to provide more clarity, I offer you some examples here, examples of behaviors that can cause these positive or these negative feelings and experiences and emotions. So with enjoyment or discontentment, are you engaging in activities, excuse me, that you want to engage in or not? Emphasis on the word you. Are you listening to you and engaging in those activities, or are you engaging in activities that other people want you to or think you should engage in? When we veer too much on the path of engaging in activities of others that others want us to, we find ourselves feeling discontented. Similarly, are you defining what you want in life or not? It's a matter of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. If you allow yourself to not pay attention to what you want, but you continue to respond to and act on what other people want. Are you engaging in self-talk that is positive or negative? A real difference maker when it comes to confidence or low self-esteem. Are you engaging in embracing personal growth and change or not? The difference maker for achievement or stuckness. Overall, choices that you make in your work and your play, in your fun, will be the difference maker of feeling fulfilled or feeling frustrated. And so when we act in this space of our good habits, it leads us to truly living a more joyful and satisfied life. So you might be wondering, well, how do habits really form? And you might be thinking, I don't try, I'm not intentional about forming some of my bad habits. Charles Duhigg, author of The Power of Habit, teaches us that the formation of habits is all about a three-part loop. You have the cue, you have the routine, and you have the reward. And the continuation, that the repetition of this loop, having the cue, responding by the routine because you want this reward, this creates your habit loop. Often within the routine, there exists a craving, or if not necessarily a craving, a desire for something. So to share a real simple example of the habit loop, we can think about brushing our teeth. In the morning particularly, we feel this film on our teeth that is just not pleasurable. And so that is the cue. But we know that if we take action, if we go perform that routine of brushing our teeth, we might experience the tingling sensation of the toothpaste in our mouth, and that's something we enjoy. We might experience the enjoyment of the fresh, minty, clean, fresh taste in our mouth. And those are the rewards. So we stay in this loop of whenever we feel that film on our teeth, we desire to have a different feeling and we desire to have that reward. So we continue to do this. Now, the interesting thing to note is that habits can emerge without our permission. And habits can become more and more automatic. And what I mean by habits can emerge without our permission, let me give you this example. A family might not intentionally desire to be fast food junkies, okay? However, our fast food establishments like McDonald's, that's a good example, makes it so easy because wherever we are, there is a McDonald's restaurant that looks the same everywhere. We're very close to the same, so it's something we're very familiar with. And we have come to learn that if we purchase a product from McDonald's, we're going to get that sensation, that desirable sensation of that sugar, that salt, that fat, those things that we all crave at times. Okay. And the family who is not intentional about being a repeat, fast food junkie, they visit McDonald's maybe one time a month. Okay. And then soon their schedule is such that, oh, well, that made it easier. And just, picking up that Happy Meal for my child made it really easy. So next week you find yourself doing the same thing. And then without thinking, you're finding yourself doing it the second time that week. And this is how habits emerge without our permission. Perspective. We all have habits. We operate around habits, bad habits and good habits. We need to be kind to ourselves. No judging, no self-judgment. There's no room for that. Except that you are like every other human being on this earth. You're going to have your habits, and accept that you have habits that you want to change. Now, I've heard some folks say that, what you immediately think of, the connotation that you receive immediately when you use that word habit is something negative. If you experience the same thing, you might want to change your perspective to referring to your repeated behaviors as rituals versus habits. Rituals comes with a positive connotation. We think of like family rituals, like fun things we do with our families. So this might be a new perspective that will help you as you manage your habits and your perspective around habits. And just know that you are not broken. You just need a better system. So what do I mean by system? Here's where I'm going to share with you some of my personal habits and systems. So why is it that I can take my medication every morning without failure, without missing a single dose? How is it that I was able to form that habit, but other habits I just cannot get to stick? Well, in the case of my medication, what I know about my condition of hypothyroidism, a very common condition, is that I need to be on Synthroid the rest of my life, or I will not be able to live an energetic life. How did I build a system that I can remember to do this every morning faithfully? So what I have done is knowing that every morning when I wake up, the first thing I'm going to need to do, and at my age, is use the bathroom. So I know I will be walking across the hallway from my bedroom into the bathroom. And I know that I'm going to have a dry mouth, and a glass of water will be really refreshing. So as I reach into my medicine cabinet to get my Dixie cup to get some water, right there is my Synthroid, which I also know that I need to take 30 to 60 minutes before breakfast. So it's the perfect system. So this is what I mean by system. So some tips on turning bad habits into good habits. Again, create systems that work for you. And the key word is you. There is no one size fits all formula when it comes to habit creation. It has to be what works for you. Hold yourself to your own standard rather than somebody else's. This isn't about what somebody else wants for you. This is about what you want for you and how you want to define your standards. And take small steps, because it will be more accessible and appealing, reaching that goal, so you will be more likely to succeed. I always like to give the example of the ladder approach. So picture in your mind for me a ladder. It can be a short ladder to represent a small goal. It can be a large ladder, a very tall ladder to represent a large goal. But let's say that you are working on a project, or you have some sort of goal in mind. Your project might be weight loss. Let's use weight loss for a minute. Let's say your goal is to lose 50 pounds. Oh, 50 pounds. That can feel so daunting, so overwhelming. If what you keep in front of you is that number 50, thinking of that big, huge step, it is going to be much harder to reach it than if you work in small steps. So with that ladder in mind, put your focus on each rung of the ladder, and only one rung at a time. So as you lose that first pound, or those first 2 pounds, put yourself on that first rung of the ladder. And now you can see, I've already made it this far. I can do that again. Get yourself to the second rung. A much more effective way of looking at your goal of changing a habit. Sometimes to change habits or to create good habits, it involves finding a coping mechanism. So for example, let's say you're finding yourself really struggling to get everything done. You have so many things on your plate. A coping mechanism that you might use that will help you to have more positive feelings and negative feelings is to, instead of always putting a to-do list in front of you, try a I've done this list. Every couple of days, or once each week, or once a month, whatever works for you, whatever you need. Write down, I've done this list. Remind yourself of your accomplishments, and that very small behavior will leave you feeling better about yourself and motivate you to take the next step. Sometimes swapping in a productive activity instead of what you want to be doing or what your bad habit tells you to be doing is just the thing you need. For example, there's nothing I love more than to sit down with a bag of potato chips. Notice I didn't say a small plate or a dish, I said the bag. But I find if I purposefully engage myself in like knitting, for example. My hands are constantly busy. My mind is constantly busy. I never think about having those potato chips. So try, swapping in a more productive activity. Sometimes it's in turning bad habits into good habits. It's just a matter of making adjustments. I have a Pennsylvania Dutch background. Ever since I was a child, the big dishes, if not the pots of food, were put on the table. We call this serving meals family style. And not only have I been encouraged since childhood to, eat as much as I want, but you have to clean up your plate if you want dessert or if you want to go out and play. It has been very difficult for me to break that habit of going from eating family style to plating my serving, and that's what you stop at. But it is just that adjustment and doing it, one step at a time that is helping me to overcome my eating habits. Similarly, if you enjoy wine, you might want to consider making the adjustment of adding a little bit Diet Club soda, enjoying a wine spritzer instead of the full glass of wine. And with all of these tips, just do it. As Eva Young has said, to think too long about doing a thing often becomes its undoing. I am going to make the assumption here that all of us, if not most of us on the call today, work to make a living. So because work is such a huge part of our lives, I'm going to offer some specific tips of good habits so that you can succeed in your work. Did you know that sometimes the best way to improve your work is to actually get away from work? I love the idea of teams having walking meetings instead of sitting around the conference table in the same environment you're in every day, inside 4-block walls. Get outside, have walking meetings. You're in a new environment. The creative juices will flow more easily. I personally schedule drives or walks on my calendar so that I can get out into a different environment and, ideate in different ways. Know when you do your best work, when you are most alert, when you are at your brightest and you're more energized. And within the control that you have, schedule those tasks for the time of the day that you will be able to best attack them. Filter your commitments. Oh, commitments is so huge. We all want to help others. Too often we overcommit. So think about filtering your commitments. So when you are approached by somebody else, they're asking you a favor, they're asking for your help. Before saying yes, consider it this way. If this were to happen tomorrow, they need your help as soon as tomorrow, what would your answer be? This helps you to gauge the importance to you, the value to you of helping in that regard or not. Don't be afraid to reschedule something that's on your calendar. If you are working on a project and you need to stay focused on your goals, whatever it might be, and today, this afternoon, this evening is the time for you, you will have some very productive time. Again, don't be afraid to ask to reschedule a meeting. Now, out of common courtesy, don't do it last minute or just for the fun of it. But people will understand, and it can help you tremendously. You might want to try just stepping away from your work for 30 or more minutes or 15 minutes, whatever you can, on some mindless matter. I find that, being a sole practitioner, an entrepreneur, if I allow myself to, if I'm not mindful of what I'm doing, I can find myself stuck at my desk for hours because I have to be every role in my business. It's not good. It just drains my energy. It decreases my actual productivity. But if I take just like 30 minutes and go outside, pull some weeds or do some cleaning, just even for that short period of time, and then come back to my desk work, I'm more alert, I'm more energized, and the ideas start flowing again. And lastly, I love this, the 2-minute rule. If you've read the book Getting Things Done by author David Allen, this is his 2-minute rule. And that is, if something requires only 2 minutes to do it immediately, rather than putting it to the side and allowing it to stack up. And I'm going to give you a specific example. Over the last number of years, I'm a magazine reader. I love to read Entrepreneur Magazine, Fast Company, Inc., Oprah, when Oprah was still publishing her magazine. And when I would find really useful information or excellent articles, I would rip those pages out of the magazines, okay? And I'm usually reading somewhere outside of my office, but I would take them to my office, put them on my desk, and did nothing to act further on those. Although I always know that ultimately I want to take those snippets of information and record it in my electronic documents, in my electronic filing system. What has happened time and time and time again, I end up with so many of these, what I call my rep sheets, that when I go to actually get these into my electronic system, I kid you not, I have spent entire days when it could have taken me just 2 minutes. That is the power of the 2-minute rule. These are some other examples of my own good habits and systems that I've learned to develop in my work. Again, the 2-minute rule, it's just so important, so I wanted to bring it to your attention again. There's also the idea log, and the idea, no pun intended, behind the idea log is that, so we all have good ideas, whether it's about our work, a home project, whatever it might be, we all have good ideas. And I'll give the example of a team. On your work team, somebody might have a good idea. Start creating an idea log where in your Word document or your spreadsheet, you document whose idea this was. So the name, the date of the idea itself, and then maybe a column for a few notes about that idea. And the purpose is, although that idea might, for whatever reason, not be feasible today, in time, as other circumstances change, it might be an excellent idea and an excellent time to implement that idea. But what happens when we don't write them down? We too quickly forget about those good ideas. So I encourage you to start an idea log, monthly outreach tracker, a very simple Word document where I intentionally decide, who am I going to reach out to this month? Might be an old friend, it might be an old client, it might be somebody new I want to meet and have a conversation with. The key here is being intentional. My annual sales growth chart, I keep it on the wall beside me, beside my desk. So every day I can see, am I growing? Am I not? What a motivation booster. Another time-related rule, the 90-minute rule. I do not recall which leadership guru I learned this from, but the 90-minute rule tells us that when you sit down to work on a task or a project, giving yourself 90 minutes is that magical and perfect amount of time to get your head into the project, to wrap your head around it, what you need to do. It gives you the opportunity of time to really get into the zone and a nice amount of time to actually be productive. But you're not extending it into 2 hours or more where you really start feeling the energy drain. And I have found this to be so true. 90 minutes, something really magical about that amount of time. Now, whether it's habits or anything else that you might be responding to in life, if you don't take anything else away from today's presentation, remember this formula, E plus R equals O. It stands for event plus response equals outcome. And what it tells us is that how you respond to the events in your life is going to determine the outcome. Events happen every minute of our life. An event might be you're struggling with your children to get them out of bed and brush their teeth to get on the school bus. An event might be you are unexpectedly called into your boss's office and his or her tone suggests that, uh-oh, what is this going to be about? An event might be you're not feeling well and your spouse or your partner decides to do something really nice for you and they're going to cook dinner for you. Are you going to, with genuine sincerity, thank them for that? Or are you going to expect it and not give them the thanks they deserve? How are you going to respond when you are called into your boss's office unexpectedly? Again, how you respond to the events in your life is going to determine the outcome. Anything is possible, even with your habits, changing, breaking old habits, or adopting new habits. Everything is possible if you believe. Career success is possible, wellness is possible, meaningful relationships, and living that satisfied life. That's all any of us want in the end, is to live a satisfied life. I'd like to offer you a content reward today. Think of it as some bonus content. Talking about believing, everything starts with believing in ourselves. If you would like to learn more about believing, the power of believing, feel free to send me an email after today's event and in the subject line put, I want to believe. And I will be more than happy to send you a free PDF, one that I've created. And what this PDF really talks about is the difference between a belief and a wish. We can wish for things, but that's a very passive way of looking at it. When we truly believe, is when we can move ourselves forward. And the information that you're going to find in this PDF actually comes from a conversation that I had with one of my mentors a number of years ago. A very bright gentleman. He just really gets people and the power of how we think. So again, my content reward to you today. Peter Drucker has said the best way to predict the future is to create it. Are you ready to create your future? I always like to leave my audiences with some of my highly recommended resources. And in regard to our subject area today, I point you to these 5 books. Born Gifted, actually authored by my friend and fellow entrepreneur, Nissan Trotter. It is a short, quick, but phenomenal read that tells you and gets you thinking about your own unique natural giftedness. You have natural strengths that quite possibly have not yet been discovered. This book will help you to do that. I mentioned before The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, a very good read. Positive Intelligence is all about the ways in which all humans, but how we individually self-sabotage ourselves. And if you go to the website, positiveintelligence.com, there's actually a free assessment you can take. It's a real quick assessment that will help you to uncover your top ways of how you self-sabotage yourself. Deep Work is an excellent read on creating the habit of focus in your work. And you might be familiar with the series of You Are a Badass books. A very good, she just puts it right on the line for you, way of kicking you in your butt to let you know that you can be more, you can do more, you can be who you want to be. And so I'd like to leave you with this challenge. I mean, what good is all of this information if you don't take some action on it? So I'd like for you to, ponder these questions, answer these questions for yourself. When you think about your habits, particularly those you would like to eliminate, what is at stake if nothing changes? Who is the person I want to be? What do I want more of or less of in my life? You need to identify your habits. You need to take that inventory that we started with so that you can break them or adopt new ones. I know you got this. And as Aubrey Padmore has said, the only person alive on this planet that can stop you from succeeding is you. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. We do have time for some questions and answers. But real quickly, I would like to share that I will be back on May 20th to talk to you about solving your career confusion. This is actually my signature talk. Have given in several states over the last couple years. So if you are feeling settled or unsettled or stuck in your career, you might want to join me on May 20th. And I know we got a late start because of the technical glitches, but I have time to stay on maybe 10 minutes, past 2 o'clock. And if you do all the same, yeah, let's move into some Q&A. I'm eager to hear your questions. Or if you would like to just, openly share some of your good habits or your good systems that you have built, I know I would love to hear them.
Diane, maybe we can ask everyone to unmute themselves if they want to ask a question.
Absolutely. So please go ahead and unmute yourself. And Tony is kind enough. She's going to sort of monitor the chat room for me. If you have already entered some questions in there or have something that you would like to ask.
Right.
her.
Someone wants to know, they want to reiterate which book provides the quiz.
The quiz, the assessment on positive intelligence. The book is titled Positive Intelligence. If you go to the website, the link is positiveintelligence.com, and you will find it there.
I don't see any questions other than that. If
I have
anybody wants to ask, I'm sorry.
I have a
Okay.
question. I did put this in the chat, but just to Diane, so I'll just verbalize it. Can you clarify the idea of would you commit to this tomorrow? Does that mean tomorrow instead of today? When you said, or tomorrow instead of an indefinite commitment? What?
Thank you for asking that good question, and because this might help clarify for others too. So somebody approaches you, asks you to help out, okay? They might not need your help for until maybe 3 days from now or the end of the week. But the idea around this is to think of it in your head as, if it were needing to be done tomorrow, would I still say yes? And what that's doing is helping you to internalize the need. And if it's something that will bring you value, something that is important enough for you to do, and that you're willing to put all of your other tasks and commitments to the side.
Okay. I understand now.
Does that make sense? Does that make it more clear?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that good question. What else is on the minds of people in the meeting today?
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Sylvia,
Hi,
and
Sylvia.
I want to thank you for this wonderful talk.
Oh,
I
pleasure.
just want to share a little bit of my experience with habits. So I have a big goal, and I was planning these steps through for achieve my goal a few years ago, and that is to study for a big test. I think is one of the most important tests that I will have to take in my career. So I was with this idea that I needed to study around 8 hours per day for a long period of time. That's like about between 6 or a year to be able to do this test, or to have a good score, or to get a good score in this test. And it's been almost a year and a half since I started to study, and I haven't really get into a consistent schedule and a consistent I don't know, like habit of study every day for 8 hours or around that time. And I had this time, or these periods of time where I just don't want to do anything related with, and other periods of time where I feel like I want it. But I think that consistent is a really big thing to be able to really do well in this test. So one of the big why I enrolled this talk was because I was thinking, well, I want to start the habit of study every day, even if it's a little, or even if it's, I don't know, 2 hours, 4 hours during the day, because I think that's most important by the end, that just do it like a lot. And if I, like I feel tired and I don't want it, but just try to stay sitting on my desk for the 8 hours.
And so Sylvia, are you sharing with us that you found consistency to be your key, or are you asking a question in that of me as?
No, okay. It's like sharing like my experience, but
Mhm.
also like kind of like asking a question about how can I get into the mood of or that like feeling of wanting to study at least every day, without being tired like after 8 hours per day, but at least every day, I don't know, 2 hours or kind of like for less than 8 hours.
Yes, I understand. And the first thing that comes to my mind is that point I made earlier about knowing when you do your best work, or in this case, your best study. So
Mhm.
you know that physically and mentally, you cannot be at your best every one of 24 hours every day. But if you can recognize when you do your best, you're going to find that you can move into that activity study without it feeling so heavy on you. And you're going to be more energized and more motivated to do it. Okay.
Okay.
And so allowing yourself to not think that I have to study for a solid 8-hour block of time,
Mm-hmm.
just throw that out the window. That does not work for any of us.
Mm-hmm.
But find the time, that window of time that works for you. And think about your environment too. The environment you're putting yourself in when you go to do your study.
Okay.
Different things in your environment might help you more so than they would me. I do a lot of my thought work. I purposefully drive to a nearby lake or mountain stream and sit there out with Mother Nature and just listening to the rippling water. And it helps my thoughts to flow better, just like the water.
Wow.
Perhaps moving yourself into a different physical space,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it's something else about your environment you bring into your environment.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that
Thank
help?
you.
Does that help?
Yes, a
Sylvia?
lot. A lot. I actually was thinking one day, maybe if I go to the library, it like came into, like that study place, and also like that study like period of, or like time to just study, because sometimes like I'm sitting and I want to study, and after I remember that I have to do the laundry, so I'm like okay, I'm gonna do the laundry, and after I return and I want to study again, and it's like I don't know, I start to think about other things that I have to do during the day, and I'm like, okay, I just gonna clean these, and but after, by the end of the day, I really didn't study. I just was doing other little chores around the house or something like that, and I was like, I don't know, I supposed to study today.
Diane, Diane, Cindy has her hand raised. I don't know if she wants to ask a question.
Oh, okay, thank you for bringing that to my attention. And Sylvia, feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions on your specific situation there. Cindy, do you have a question, or would you like to share something with us?
Yeah, I wanted to share something with you. I tuned in a little later, but I found this very, very informative, and I could really relate to what you said about the magazines, because I will tear out the article and then I will put it someplace. And then if I go back to the article, that is definitely a miracle if I go back. And after a while, I find like I'm just accumulating the papers, but I'm getting rid of at least I'm getting rid of some of the magazines, which is what, I'm trying to do. But what I have done is lately is I've looked at the article and I've said, what do I want from this article? What is the important information? Do I have to keep the whole piece of paper, or can I just pull out some ideas from it? And so I like your idea of the ideologue very much.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I really do. I have a journal, and sometimes what I do is I put categories in the journal. So let's say if it's people I want to remember, then I'll put art ideas about people I want to remember. Or if it's things I ordered, I'll make a little tag on the paper, one of those the stickums kind of things. So
The sticky notes, yes.
sticky notes. So when I look at the journal, I can just go right to the article rather than keeping the whole article, which I really don't need. So I thank you for that ideologue. I like that very much.
Oh, you are quite welcome. And thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Diane,
Yes.
they want to ask, there's a question about your training, and then there's a question about what if you don't have a choice of your environment? What if you can't step out of your house or take a drive? I think that's what they're talking about. But also, they want to know about your training and a little bit about your background.
Yes, certainly. So my professional background, I actually say that, I've had 3 careers: a career in parenting, a career in information technology, where I was for 33 years, started out as a computer programmer. And toward the end of my time in information technology, before retiring from information technology, about 8 years prior, I had returned to school, got a degree in organizational leadership, and I started to recognize that my interests and actually my strengths were actually in the area of people development. And so as I continued on my journey of exploration of myself, I worked with my first coach, never ever imagining that would turn into me discovering my interest in coaching as well. So back to school again, and then the practice of coaching and certification in coaching. So this is my 3rd career. And so I went through that difficult time of asking, who am I? What is next for me? Who am I meant to be? I've actually gone through the journey of exploring career transition and learning how to navigate through that. And, so whether it's through my coaching in general or just in talking about habits, through all of my careers, through my parenting, through my IT and moving into leadership positions in IT, and through now coaching, I observe people. I'm about people development. And so this is why I bring to you, things that I've learned, things that I've experienced, and so forth. So that is my background. And real quickly, can you refresh me, Tony, on the second part of the question?
What if you can't change your environment?
Yes. So the first thing I would ask you is, are you certain that you cannot change your environment? Perhaps you cannot, but I offer that question because often we tell ourselves we can't do something when in fact we can. We just don't have the information we need to make that change. So if you are talking specifically, though, that you do not have the opportunity to leave your place of work for 30 minutes to go take a walk or, whatever, for whatever reason, is there something else you might be able to do within your workspace, within your existing environment to make it a bit different? The person who shared this, could you tell me more? And feel free to unmute yourself and, just have a conversation with me. Or you can type it into chat.
Yes, no, actually, I'm the one who asked the question, but it wasn't so much for me, actually. I just thought about my kids and their environments where they always tell me they cannot, focus in their current environment per se, let's say. And they're looking to kind of, like you're saying, to change their environment, but at the moment they cannot, let's say. So, but you're right. You can make maybe some adjustments to the current environment to make it more productive, let's say, for them. So work with your current kind of thing as opposed to, because to me at times it seems like they want to run away from whatever they're, you understand what I'm saying?
I do. And thank you so much for sharing more. I heard you use the word focus, and oh my, that gets all of us all the time. In today's world, so much information and so much stimulation around us all the time.
Yes.
I know focus is a hard thing to master, but back to this idea of changing your environment. So you might not be able to leave your physical space for another type of space, but when it comes to focus, maybe there are things that you can change or adjust within your physical environment where you need to stay. For example, you might do things to help eliminate distractions so that you can focus. Things that come to mind are, unless you need it for your work or for your study, leave your cell phone in another room. Don't even have it in the room with you. Make sure you turn off your email alerts. Tell yourself that you're going to give yourself a 30-minute block of time or whatever time it is. Something I often do, if I have some stacks of other project work on my desk, I purposefully move it to another piece of furniture in my office so that I have a completely clean desktop so that I can focus on just that project. Again, these are things that work for me.
Right.
Everybody needs to find what works for themselves. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much. Except like, again, I guess you're right. It's individual. And I guess my struggle here is that I want to help my daughter, for example, but she says whatever I offer her as help is not helpful to her. That's where you come in with, she needs to figure out what works for her, basically.
Yeah, and the better the question she can ask herself,
Mhm.
the more clarity, or maybe you can even help her through this. Ask her things that will help bring clarity to really fully understanding what the struggle is in the environment, and start just brainstorming some different types of ideas.
Thank you very much. By the way, it resonated with me. It's interesting. I also was in IT. Now I'm like thinking I want to move somewhere else type of thing for my next career.
Oh, good for you. Good for you for thinking about that. And, I'd love to see you again on May 20th when I talk about
Okay.
career.
I'll try to be back. Thank you very much. Pleasure.
You're welcome. Who else has a good share for us or a good question?
There's one other question if you want to tackle it. They want to know, what if the 2-minute rule takes control of their life?
That's an excellent question. So I interpret that as, well, what if I allow myself to 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, just consecutively,
Mhm.
that it just takes over. I don't want to come across as making this sound too simple, but I really don't think any of us would experience that, because most things that we find facing us are not things that can be tackled within 2 minutes. They are bigger things that require 10 minutes of work, or a day of work, or a week of work. To ensure that we're all clear on the 2-minute rule, again, it's those things that truly can be done in 2 minutes. I gave the example of my magazine rip sheets. Here's another example that we most likely can all relate to. Think of something in your house. If you're a newspaper subscriber and you get the daily paper, the physical paper, delivered to your house every day, and you sit down in the evening to read that newspaper. Once you finish reading that paper, you have a choice to make. Either you are going to immediately take that newspaper to the recycle bin or to your trash can, or you are going to lay it on the floor by your recliner or stuff it in your magazine rack or whatever, and just leave it there. I'll take it to recycling later, or put it in the recycling can later. The next evening, you do the same thing. The next evening, you do the same thing. And maybe you have somebody else living with you and this is my case. So my husband, he reads the newspaper in one room, I read it in another room. So if we don't take that 2 minutes to take it to the recycling can right away, we can potentially end up with newspapers scattered all over his room, all over my room. You get the idea. And when you do then have to go collect all those newspapers, it's going to take you more time than what it would have initially if you had applied that 2-minute rule. Does that answer the question?
I think you answered it very well.
Yes, that answered my question. But sometimes I feel that the interrupt all are going to take 2 minutes, but the beginning of your answer where they really are 10-minute tasks, and I shouldn't interrupt myself with a 10-minute task.
Yeah, you were breaking up there a little bit, but I think I got the gist of your response, and that being, yes, there is a difference between a 2-minute task and a 10-minute task. If we allow too many 10-minute tasks to come in, that can be a real disruption.
Yeah.
And am I correct in that's what you are saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes. So you did answer.
Seems
Yeah,
that the
it's sort of like with my habits, so my 2 daughters are now adults, on their own, but yet I'm still mom. So one of my bad habits, bad for me personally, is that I can be in the middle of some really important work, but if I see a text coming from either my daughters or the phone ringing, what do I want to do? I mean, in my mind, they still come first. I need to just stop and respond to them. But I've come to learn it only distracts me, it disrupts me, it holds me back from achieving what I need to achieve. And in the end, it's okay if I wait till the evening to respond, we have our way of knowing with each other if it's something immediate that we need to talk, immediately.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Diane, you're going to be back on the 20th of May, correct?
I am going to be back on the 20th of May, and I invite all of you too to follow me on my social media. I am most active on LinkedIn and just recently on Instagram. I'm coming to really love Instagram. Not as active on Facebook, admittedly. I'm just not a big fan of Facebook, but you will find me out there. So feel
Okay.
free to follow me and send that email if you would like to learn more about believing.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Diane. It was amazing.
Thank you so much, Tony. And I wish all of you an enjoyable rest of your day. And thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, I'm really sorry about that little blip.
Oh, no
we do
worries.
so many programs in this library that sometimes we trip over each other a little bit.
No
But-
worries at all.
Yeah.
Tony, are you able to save the chat for me?
I don't know if I can save the chat. We are recording it. We did record it.